Hello, and welcome to the RAH Band Podcast Update, Episode 3. Well, about a year ago now, we were approached by a record label called Cherry Red, who specialise in box sets. And we were asked if it was possible for the RAH Band to collate their back catalogue to release as a series of 1 or 2 box sets. So we said, yes, we can do that. This week, we're going to be talking about that box set and how it was compiled, and some might say the difficulties of getting this thing together. So this week we have 2 guests. The first guest is Danny Keene.
Hello, everyone.
And Dean Verdin.
Good morning.
Now, some of you may know Dean from the last podcast, but I'd like to start with Danny. So Danny, talk to me a little bit about, explain about what Cherry Red does and how you got involved with the project.
Okay, so Cherry Red are one of the leading independent record companies, largely specialise in catalogue reissues. Been going for 45 years, formed in 1978. So a lot of expertise in reissuing both on physical formats and digitally music by a whole wide spectrum of artists. Me personally, I work for them as a freelance consultant in a number of different areas, one of which is product managing various different artist releases. And at the beginning of this year, I was asked would I like to take on the responsibility for releasing what would be at least 1, if not 2, comprehensive RAH Band box sets, which obviously I was only too thrilled to do so because I'd had some involvement with Richard when I was working at my previous company, and we had licensed and released some products from his catalogue in the 1990s.
So tell me about how first set about compiling the information. What was the first thing you had to consider?
Well, to be honest with you, I actually inherited the responsibility for this box set from somebody else who had started work on it. I did have a tentative track listing to work with, which was a good starting point for me. There appeared to be some structure to it. But one of the things which I could see quite quickly was that I was going to need some help with regard to the various different kind of mixes and edits of a number of different tracks. And I knew I was going to need a kind of a RAH Band Superfan who would be able to help me. And it's a process which I've followed before in the past when I've worked on behalf of Cherry Red with other artists. It always makes good sense to, if possible, to work with a superfan who has a more detailed knowledge of the artist recordings than you do. And in some instances, more than what the actual artist or band do as well.
Yes, and you asked me if there were any superfans, didn't you, Danny? And
I did.
And if for anyone who listened to the last podcast, the podcast episode 2, you would have listened to Dean. So I called Dean and said, Dean, do you want to get involved with this? And he didn't even hesitate. So Dean, explain to me. Well, first of all, your first thoughts of getting involved with this, and
do you know what? I mean, going back. I mean, this is sort of 6-7 months ago now. With originally when you were sat with Richard and Danny, and he's in the conservatory, and first of all, what a thrill for me and what an honour to be considered the person to help with this. Obviously there was absolutely no hesitation whatsoever on my part. It was like, yeah, absolutely, I'll help. And I think, Danny's exactly right. I think there's such a complexity to the back catalogue, and there are so many variations and different mixes, and even songs that are titled the same that actually are completely different to something else. So, it does or it did need just that little bit of extra input to say, no, that's not that, that's that, and that's this and that's that, you know, which is basically what we've done for the last 7 months, is listen to thousands of hours of RAH Band and, you know, go through master tapes and everything else to see what was there. And along the way, we've discovered some things that we didn't know were there, which is even better.
Yeah, that is incredible, because for the first stage for me was to get all of Richard's masters, of which there were many, and all dated back to the early 80s, or the late 70s, early 80s, before digital formats were around. And it was just a matter of seeing what was there, seeing what we could salvage. And as you say, Dean, other tracks came to light. So with these first masters, what was the process? Was I kind of handed them over to Cherry Red, crossing fingers desperately? So what was the actual process of, first of all, getting a track listing together and getting the masters into a state where they could be put onto CD?
So I was sent a work in progress track listing for the first 5 CD box set, and I was also sent a number of audio files, presumably from the masters that you said had been supplied to Cherry Red and they had transferred. And there was also some files from other sources, CDs. So I had a whole different mixture of different master sources. I said there was quite a lot of process of emails backwards and forwards and telephone conversations talking about what tracks should go on there, in which order, if we should remove certain tracks. It was a very fluid process. The track listing on a number of the individual CDs changed. We had to move certain tracks from one CD onto another, whether it be for running time, they would sit there better. So this was definitely in my kind of 30 years experience plus of kind of project managing, either directly hands-on or overseeing releases. This is definitely one of the most complex ones when it came to being able to put together the track listing.
So as far as the track listing goes, how are the box set compiled? Is it chronologically or?
Yeah, I think, you know, when Danny and I first started talking about this, how was the best way to do it? Because we're going to spread this over 2 box sets, we've done it in chronological order. So the first box set is from the beginning, 77, starting with the Crunch and Beyond album, and that takes us up to 1984. So you've got the RAH Band album in there from 81, you've got Going Up in there from 83, and then all the standalone singles from 81, 82, 83, 84 over to bonus CDs. And then the second box set is from 1985 onwards. And, you know, it was nicer to do it that way, I think, because it gives a starting point and an ending point rather than things being sort of spasmodically put in different places. It's very coherent. And
I think the other thing to mention in the process that Dean and I adopted is that I think on all 5 CDs, we've virtually got maximum running time on there. So we've squeezed as many tracks as possible on there to give people the best possible value. So as Dean mentioned, you've got the first 3 albums in their original format with bonus tracks after them. And then you've got 2 CDs. The 4th and 5th CDs are what we've entitled Remixes and Rarities, Part 1 and Part 2, which have got kind of additional bonus tracks from that particular era and period of time, which couldn't fit onto the first 3 CDs, but obviously are sitting there as 2 kind of nice additional bonus CDs for people to enjoy.
One thing that I was very conscious of as well is that I think you have to have a listening experience, you know. So we've done that in the way that actually whichever CD it is that you play, it plays as a cohesive CD, you know, and it's nice to listen to, you know. One of the things that is my little sort of niggly thing is that when you have 6 or 7 mixes of the same songs running straight after each other, because eventually you get bored after number 3 and you start skipping. So we've done it so that, you know, you've got one song here, one song here, one song there, and because when you listen to it, they actually sound like full albums, you know, and I really like that. It's I've never stopped listening to it, to be honest.
It's incredible, really, because just knowing Richard over the years, he has got an incredible work ethic. You know, he'll go into his studio, he'll walk his dogs in the morning, go into his studio, do morning's work, have some lunch, do an afternoon's work, and he's done that throughout the years, even, you know, from when he was in the charts in the mid-'80s through to today. He still does it today. So there's an incredible body of work there, which has never really, a lot of the tracks you say have never really seen the light of day. So with the resurgence of heritage acts and obviously the RAH Band with everything that's going on with Messages from the Stars at the moment, this is just an incredible package to offer to anyone who's discovered the RAH Band and want to discover more. So this has come just at the right time. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely perfect timing. And I think even, you know, a casual fan would pick this up and then realize that the RAH Band are a lot more than 2 or 3 tracks that people are familiar with. You know, you listen to what's actually on there, and you know, the interesting thing is the evolution, I think, of the RAH Band from on this first box set, starting with, you know, the sort of glam rock and brass heavy Crunch and Beyond album into the jazz funk of the RAH Band album, and then we go into this sort of space age pop and funk kind of feel of going up, and then the tracks from '84 completely different again. So you have this evolution through Richard's career of how he experimented with different styles and how he thought, yeah, I've done that, I'll do something else now. And, you know, it does sound wonderful. You know, we've got 71 tracks over 5 CDs, which is phenomenal, 31 of which never ever been on CD before. You know, I mean, that's amazing. That shows you how much work's gone into it between us all.
And 2 tracks, one song in particular, which is previously unreleased on any format, physically or digitally, both the 7-inch and 12-inch mix.
Are we allowed to say which track that is?
Well, I suppose we can do ahead of the full track listing being released soon. So that track is Funky Tokyo.
Right, I do believe there's a bit of history in this track, is there?
There is indeed. Well, actually, interestingly, it was labelled in the master files as just Tokyo. And I think it was, when the master files were originally picked up, I think it was thought to have been the master tape for Tokyo Flyer, which was a single which was released in 1980, which is also included. And going through the master tapes, I was like, I am, you know, as you know, RAH Band Superfan. So for me to hear a song that I've never heard before, what a thrill, you know? And then going through the rest of the master tapes, found a 12-inch mix as well. It was like... You know, it's like Mecca from the gods, you know? And, you know, it is a take on Tokyo Flyer, but it's a completely different track. And obviously, you know, we've spoken with Richard about it. And from memory, he thinks it was recorded around 81, 82, because we have Liz on vocals.
It's interesting because I do get a lot of emails from fans around the world saying, how do I get hold of Tokyo Flyer? That seems to be the track, the elusive track. So the time has come, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, it was released on a 7-inch single back in 1980, and sort of, and since then, it's never appeared on a compilation. It's never appeared digitally. It just is, and it's a phenomenal track. You know, it's so high energy and super fun. And yeah, we've got both the 7-inch and the instrumental on the box set, and of course the new version, which people have never heard before.
That's excellent. So Danny, all the tracks are compiled, they're all in order. So what's the next stage? What happens now?
Well, from the mastering process, I then work with Dean and we send over the files for each individual CD to the mastering engineer. So he knows he's got the tracks, he knows the track listing, the sequence for them. And then he goes through all the tracks and then emails me back with a kind of report on the quality of those tracks. And if I'm honest with you, unfortunately, there were a few tracks that kind of fell by the wayside because, unfortunately, the master sources were so poor that we were unable to sufficiently seeded them so they would be of good enough audio quality to be released on the box set, which is a shame, obviously, but unfortunately, there's nothing we could do about it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Nick from Fluid has done an incredible job. I can't say how amazing he's been with this, and extremely patient, to say the least. But I think the result is that his work has made this an absolutely amazing box set. And when you listen to it, everything sounds crystal clear. It's beautifully done. And as Danny said before, one of the things that people might notice is quite evidently missing is the track Questions from 1983. There were just absolutely no sources for that at all. It's notably missing.
Well, at this point, actually, I just want to thank Will McCormack as well for his involvement with this. He's the other super fan. And he has chipped in with a lot of information and knowledge. So thanks, Will, for that. But that's a big question, if you pardon the pun. Is there anybody out there with a top quality version of it? Do you reckon one exists? Do you reckon there's one out there?
I think what's interesting is that, because we do actually have a master for Questions, but the master, a lot of noise in. And again, I think this is because of the age of it or how it's been stored or whatever. So either it's been a fault in the production or a fault in the mastering originally. But yeah, we'll work on it.
Well, maybe that was intentional. Maybe that Richard thought, right, okay, I'm going to throw these in just for an experiment. Who knows?
The other thing that we've discovered as well, which I think is interesting, is on the track "Hunger for Your Jungle Love," which has also been a labour of love for Danny and myself and Nick, is that at the beginning you have some animal noises as the intro to the track. I don't know where they came from, but whichever version it is of that track that you have the same background noise on those animal sounds. So I think they've come from a sound effect vinyl. So they are actually embedded, and this is the problem with declicking things and sealing things, is that if it's embedded, it can't be taken away, And again, I've learned so much about this. I'm just a fan. I just know what should have been there. I don't know about the remastering process. So that's been a learning curve for me as well. But it's interesting that, unfortunately as well, the 12-inch version of that track is, again, that's another track that we couldn't include because we just couldn't get it right, But work in progress.
Work in progress indeed, Dean. So that kind of leads us up to release. So, Danny.
One thing can I just mention, Aaron? I mean, so alongside the mastering process, I'm working on the design process at the same time. So where this began was, as you may remember, Aaron, when we met earlier this year, you gave me the exciting news that there was a brand new RAH Band logo that was being kind of worked on and developed that you and Richard would like to see incorporated into the design on the box set, which you sent over to me, forwarded that on to my designer. And I mean, obviously, I think he's done an absolutely brilliant job on creating the kind of the look for the front cover of the box set. A very strong, striking image that has the brand new RAH Band logo typeface at the font at the heart of it.
May I just add, that was designed by the great Paul Waller, who is a big fan of RAH Band. He also designed the Level 42 logo. So just thought I'd add that.
Cool. And then it was a case of working with the designer. The first 3 albums, which are going to be in high-quality card wallet sleeves, we're using the designs of the original front cover designs for those particular albums. And then the designer took some RAH Band imagery from other releases and used that to create the front covers, the 2 remixes and rarities CDs.
And I have to say they're stunning.
Yeah, a good job has been done there for sure.
Exactly. So those are the 565 card. We've also got 20-page booklet, including a sleeve note written by the respected journalist Lois Wilson, who writes for Record Collector and Mojo magazine, who interviewed Richard for the sleeve note. So there's some great kind of insight in this sleeve note that besides listening to the music, I believe the fans will really enjoy reading the sleeve note within there as well. So, it's a really beautiful, put together. And the box is a high quality, firm clamshell box that the 5 individual CDs and the 20-page CD booklet will sit in.
Fantastic. The next stage, I guess, is release. Do we have a release date for this, Danny?
Yes, the release date is the 21st of October.
And is there any pre-save links that we can offer?
It's due to go live from 5th of August on Cherry Red website, first of all. There's going to be a very limited number of signed postcards that have RAH Band, the front cover image on a postcard signed by Richard. So for the first fans that pre-order it via the Cherry Red website will receive one of those postcards, and then it will be largely available via Amazon and other retailers as well. So yes, very exciting.
That's excellent. I know Richard is busy signing those postcards. He's set a few hours a day aside for those.
Can I just say as well, I haven't been involved in this process from the beginning, and it's a new experience for me. I think it's fair to say, and Danny would agree with this, I don't think anybody who picks up a deluxe edition or a box set in a store or orders them online, I don't think they have any idea how much work goes into this. I mean, we've literally spent hours, and on the last podcast, as you mentioned, Danny, it's like, do you wake up in the morning thinking about RAH Band? And yes, you know, for the last 5 months, every morning, either I've woken up to an email from Danny or vice versa, and we're like, okay, we need to do this, and that's there, and this is, you know, it's a tremendous amount of work. And, you know, I think our passion, I think, for the RAH Band comes across in the box sets. I think actually, personally, I think you can feel it.
Dean, just to add to that, there was a period of time when I was going to sleep with Messages from the Stars in my head. I'm singing it, okay. And my partner, I think she's now knows about the RAH Band intimately from having heard me play the music, singing the tracks, because you know when you get a song in your head, you can't help singing the chorus or the refrain. So, yes, it kind of, when you're working on a project like this, it kind of expands out into your kind of wider family. So yes, I've lived this project for the past 6 months or so. So obviously absolutely thrilled that we're getting to the stage now that it's going to be going up for pre-sale, and we're just a couple of months or so away from the release.
That's great, Danny. So just to wrap up then, some final words from Dean and Danny about this amazing project. And I'd just like to say on behalf of Richard as well, what an amazing thing this is for him, purely because, as you know, he's produced so much, and to have it catalogued and released as well in one unit or 2 units, as it will be, is an amazing thing for him, and hopefully an amazing thing for the fans as well. So, Danny, final words, please.
Well, I just hope that everyone's will be happy with what Dean and I have worked very hard on over this past 6 or 7 months to release. As Dean said, unfortunately, for the reasons we've explained during this podcast, there are a few tracks that weren't able to make it. I think the final words are, Aaron, that when I came to meet you at Richards back in January, I said that I wanted to produce a box set that Richard and hopefully you would be proud of. And now we're at this stage, I believe that is the case. And I hope the fans enjoy the work that we've put into it and listening to these tracks, which we said many of have never been released on CD, and including a couple of previously unreleased tracks as well. And I look forward to meeting personally with Dean next month to start the process of working on the second box set for release in 2023.
And you, Dean?
Absolutely. You know, I'm so proud of what we've achieved. And, for me to, after all of these years, to be able to have a box set and eventually 2 box sets that do give justice to everything that Richard recorded, and to hear it all so beautifully remastered, it's an absolute joy, and it's never been off the stereo in our house, and because it's absolutely joyous to listen to. And I think any RAH Band fan is going to be absolutely thrilled with it, and I hope they are. It's an amazing compilation. And as Danny says, next month we start on box 2, which hopefully will be a bit easier. Yeah.
So on that note, Dean, we always do it's become a thing now to introduce the track to end this podcast. So can you introduce that?
There is only one possible track that we can play out with, and that is to give everybody a sneak preview of this previously unheard and unreleased track, Funky Tokyo.
That's great. Well, as we discussed before, the pre-sale link will be available in the link below, and the box set is released on October the 21st. So thank you again, Danny and Dean, for a great insight into how this box set was produced. So let's say goodbye.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Bye for now.